You wake before you're ready, not because dawn called you, but because the weight of unfinished promises drags you out of sleep. There is a moment, quiet, fragile, where you can feel the truth pressing against your ribs. You are already behind. Before your feet even touch the floor, your mind begins its negotiations. 5 more minutes. You'll try harder tomorrow. You deserve a slow morning. These whispers are soft, but their power is ancient. They are the voice of the self you've allowed to rule you. The one that prefers comfort to clarity, delay to discipline. Meanwhile, in another era, Musashi rose before the sun not out of enthusiasm, but out of devotion. While you rehearse excuses, he sharpened his blade. While you debate whether to start, he moved without hesitation. There is a silence in that contrast, a quiet sting that settles deep in your chest, because you know the truth. You have sharpened your reasons for waiting far more often than you've sharpened your will to begin. And somewhere inside you, there is a faint ache, the memory of what you once imagined you could become. This is where the hidden betrayal begins. Not in grand failures, not in dramatic collapses, but in the small, unkept promises you whisper to yourself each morning. You say you will rise early. You say you will train. You say you will push, build, grow, and then the sun climbs the sky while you remain in the familiar grip of hesitation. It's a quiet kind of self-disappointment, the kind that doesn't shout, but lingers like dust in a room you haven't entered in years. You feel it even when you pretend not to. You carry it into your work, into your relationships, into your reflection. Musashi understood something we avoid admitting. The greatest duel a man ever fights is not with an opponent in the field, but with the weaker version of himself that waits inside his own skin. Discipline is not force. It is a confrontation, a private, invisible duel that begins the moment you open your eyes. Every morning, the battlefield resets. Every morning, the opponent returns. And every morning, one of you wins. You have lived too long tolerating the version of yourself that loses these small battles. You have allowed him to speak for you, act for you, decide for you. But beneath that tolerated self, there is another, a quieter one, a harder one, the one you were meant to become before fear carved detours into your life. That version watches you each day, not with judgment, but with a kind of solemn patience. He knows you're capable of more. He knows you feel the sting of your own inconsistency. He knows you're tired of disappointing your future. The first enemy is yourself, not the self you hope to be, but the self you continue to tolerate. The one who bargains, the one who delays, the one who shrinks from the discomfort required to rise. When you finally see this enemy clearly, something shifts, the fog lifts, the excuses lose their power, and you realize discipline isn't about perfection. It's about refusing to kneel before the weaker man inside you. That realization is the first crack in the old armor, the first breath of a new path. Now the duel begins. There is a rhythm to modern life that looks harmless on the surface, but erodes a man from the inside. You feel it every time you reach for your phone before your first breath of morning. Every time the glow of a screen replaces the quiet that once belonged to your own mind. The world around you hums with noise, not the noise of battle or storms or wild nature, but a softer, more dangerous kind. A digital whispering that fractures your focus, one tiny distraction at a time. You don't notice the damage in the moment. You only feel it later, when hours slip through your hands like water you can't cup tightly enough. This age of comfort is a clever trap. It promises ease while it steals your strength. Your ancestors faced hunger, weather, and war. You face convenience. And convenience has conquered more men than conflict ever did. The world has become padded, temperature-controlled, and endlessly entertained. Everything designed to keep you comfortable, fed, and distracted. until your ambition falls asleep inside you. The soft walls of modern life don't look like prison bars, but they hold you just as tightly. In Musashi's time, life itself stripped away the unnecessary. Fewer distractions, fewer temptations, fewer illusions. A man woke with a sense of clarity because his world did not compete for his attention. Silence was not a luxury. It was the air he breathed. There were no glowing rectangles pulling at his mind. No constant stimuli demanding that he divide his soul into smaller and smaller fragments. The warrior's mind was sharpened by simplicity, not overstimulation. Today, the battlefield looks different. Your enemy is not a swordsman waiting in a field at dawn. It is the endless tug of invisible impulses. A notification that breaks your focus. A scroll that devours your time. A spark of envy, comparison, curiosity, desire, all fed to you in waves so subtle you don't even recognize the ambush. You are cut not by blades, but by interruptions. Not by opponents, but by your own divided attention. This is why discipline feels impossible for the modern man. Not because he is weak, but because his mind is constantly hijacked. A fragmented mind cannot build momentum. A distracted warrior cannot strike true, and a man pulled in 20 directions cannot walk a straight path, no matter how noble his intentions are. You may think you lack discipline, but what you truly lack is rhythm. A clean, steady warrior's rhythm. The kind that rises from clarity, from silence, from intention. Without it, you drift. With it, you sharpen. Every notification pulls you 1 inch away from the man you're trying to become. Every moment of unconscious distraction widens the gap between your actions and your potential. But the moment you see the trap, you weaken its hold. You begin to recognize the invisible theft happening every day. And in that recognition, there is power. The faint beginning of a new rhythm waiting to rise within you. There comes a point when thinking becomes another form of delay. A moment when planning, preparing, and imagining quietly rot into hesitation. Modern men wait for the right mood, the right energy, the right alignment of circumstances. As if discipline were a gift handed to them when the universe feels generous. But the warriors who walked before you understood something radically different. Readiness is not a feeling. Readiness is a choice. Musashi lived by the principle of the first cut, the decisive, initiating strike made not out of aggression, but out of clarity. The first cut is the moment a man chooses movement over hesitation, courage over comfort, truth over illusion. It is the cut that breaks the paralysis of waiting. It is the act that turns intention into direction. When Musashi entered a duel, he never lingered in contemplation. He moved. He created momentum where there was none. And in that momentum, strength was born. Today, your duels are quieter, but no less real. Instead of a sword, you hold a list of promises you keep breaking. Instead of an opponent, you face the weight of your own postponement. And somewhere in the middle of your life, a truth emerges. Nothing will change until you take the first cut. Not a grand gesture, not a perfect plan, a small, symbolic action that slices through the fog. This is where most men fail. They wait to feel disciplined before they act. But the ancient path teaches the opposite. You act to become disciplined. You move first. You strike first. You make the smallest commitment imaginable. Waking up 5 minutes earlier, putting the phone away for 1 hour, training for 10 minutes. And you honor it like a sacred vow. The power is not in the size of the action, but in the momentum it forges. Because when a man keeps even a single promise to himself, something shifts. A quiet resurrection takes place inside him. A dormant part awakens. The part that remembers strength, remembers direction, remembers what it feels like to be loyal to himself. In that moment, you are no longer waiting for discipline to arrive. You are building it, one action at a time, one cut after another. When you make your first cut, the world does not change, but you do. Your posture changes. Your gaze steadies. A small flame returns to your chest. The weaker self you've tolerated begins to lose its authority, and a new voice emerges, calm, steady, determined. The first cut is not the final act. It is the beginning of your resurrection, the beginning of the path, the beginning of the man you were always meant to be. Comfort arrives softly. It has no sharp edges, no battle cry, no threat that stirs your defenses. It approaches like a warm blanket draped over your shoulders, whispering that you've earned a moment of ease, that you can rest before the real work begins. But comfort is a subtle poison. It doesn't kill your ambition outright. It lulls it to sleep. And the most dangerous enemies are always the ones that smile while they undo you. Musashi understood this better than most. He chose discomfort with deliberate precision. Cold rivers that numbed the body but awakened the mind. Nights spent beneath open skies, exposed to wind and rain. Training sessions that stretched the limits of what a human spirit could endure. He did not do these things to prove strength to others. He did them to fortify his own will, to ensure that comfort never softened his edge. Hardship was not suffering to him. It was sharpening. In the modern world, hardship rarely seeks you out. You must choose it. But comfort is everywhere. In soft beds that steal your mornings, in effortless entertainment that consumes your evenings, in routines designed to soothe rather than strengthen. A man does not fall because his challenges are too great. He falls because his comforts are too many. He forgets the taste of discipline, the clarity that comes from struggle, the dignity found in doing what is difficult on purpose. This war against comfort is not fought with dramatic gestures. It is fought in the small, silent decisions you make every day. Rising when you want to stay down. Training when your body asks for softness. Turning off the screen when your mind craves distraction. These choices carve a man into something rare. Someone who does not seek the easiest path, but the truest one. Discipline is the art of putting meaning above mood. It is choosing what strengthens you over what soothes you. The masculine path has always required a certain austerity, a willingness to face the cold, the quiet, the difficult, because in discomfort, something ancient wakes up, a steadiness, a presence, a sharpened instinct that no amount of luxury can ever create. When you choose discomfort willingly, you reclaim a part of yourself that modern life has been slowly stealing. You feel your spine straighten, your eyes narrow, your mind clear. You become harder to sway, harder to seduce, harder to weaken. You develop a quiet authority, not loud, not boastful, but undeniable. Musashi lived a life of chosen hardship not because he loved suffering, but because he refused to let comfort dull the blade of his spirit. And if you seek unbreakable discipline, you must make the same choice. Walk toward the cold rivers of your life. Let them cleanse the softness from you. Let them remind you who you are meant to become. Chapter 5. Build a code, not motivational spikes. There is a moment in every man's life when he realizes motivation is a traitor. It arrives loudly, burning with promise, filling your chest with a temporary fire. And for a few hours, you feel unstoppable. But then the day shifts, the mood fades, and the fire collapses into ash. Motivation is a visitor, passionate, fleeting, unreliable. It does not stay when the nights grow long or the tasks grow dull. It abandons you precisely when you need it most. Musashi knew this long before modern men turned to motivational bursts as their fuel. He followed a code, a personal structure forged from clarity, not emotion. His Dalkheet, the way of walking alone, was not poetry. It was a roadmap, a set of principles designed to anchor a man when his feelings rebelled. Because a man without a code drifts like a ship without a rudder, easily pulled by currents, easily redirected by winds, easily claimed by whatever impulse happens to pass through him. The modern man suffers not from lack of desire, but from lack of direction. He lives reactive, emotional, inconsistent. He rises on good days. He collapses on bad ones. He moves when he feels inspired. He stalls when he feels heavy. His life becomes a series of brief surges followed by long retreats. He mistakes emotional spikes for discipline. He mistakes excitement for commitment, but discipline is identity. It does not matter how you feel. It matters who you are loyal to. And if you want to build unbreakable discipline, you must build a code. A simple, personal structure that defines the man you choose to be when comfort, fear, and fatigue try to negotiate with you. Your code does not need to be long. In fact, it must be short. 3 non-negotiables that anchor your behavior with the weight of truth. 3 principles you obey even on your weakest days. 3 commitments that carve a line between the man you are and the man you refuse to be. They become your spine when your emotions bend. They become your compass when doubt clouds your vision. They become your armor when life presses against you. And something changes when a man begins to live by a code rather than by mood. His movements grow steadier. His decisions grow cleaner. He wastes less time, speaks with more intention, carries himself with quiet authority. Others feel it even before he explains it. He begins to move like a man who knows what he stands for. Musashi's mastery did not come from feeling unstoppable. It came from living unshakably, from choosing principle over impulse, from walking alone when the world pulled in other directions. And if you want discipline that does not collapse under pressure, you must follow the same path. Do not chase the temporary fire of motivation. Forge the steady flame of a code, because a man loyal to his code cannot be broken, even by himself. Before Musashi stepped into battle, he entered a deeper silence than the world around him could ever offer. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of presence, a deliberate stillness that sharpened his perception until he could sense intention before it became movement. This stillness was not relaxation, it was preparation. It was the forging of clarity, the narrowing of focus, the centering of spirit. The warrior became a blade long before he touched the hilt of his sword. You, however, live in a world where stillness has become almost impossible. Your mind is constantly tensed by invisible noise. Thoughts collide, tasks overlap. Anxiety hums beneath your ribs like a restless engine. You rush from moment to moment, barely inhabiting any of them. And the more chaos you absorb, the more discipline slips through your fingers. Because a man cannot act with precision when his mind is drowning in movement. Stillness is not a luxury. For the disciplined man, it is a weapon, a sharpening stone for the soul, a quieting of the internal winds so the arrow of intention can fly true. Without stillness, your focus splinters, your will becomes reactive, your clarity dissolves into mental fog, and you find yourself moving through the day with a scattered spirit, pulled by impulses rather than guided by purpose. The modern man fears stillness because it confronts him with himself. It strips away distraction and forces him to face the truths he has been avoiding, his fears, his inconsistencies, his unmade decisions. But it is precisely in this confrontation that power is reclaimed. When you sit in silence, even for a few minutes, you gather the fragments of your attention. You call back the parts of yourself you've scattered across 1,000 trivial moments. Daily stillness is not a meditation cliché. It is a return to command, a deliberate pause in which you reset your direction, breathe into your spine, and impose order on the storm inside your mind. It can be as simple as 5 slow breaths before you begin your work, a moment of grounded quiet before the world clutches at your attention, a brief closing of the eyes before stepping into something difficult. In these moments, your mind becomes a clear pool instead of a turbulent river. And from that stillness, discipline grows naturally. You begin to choose with intention instead of instinct. You begin to act with steadiness instead of panic. Musashi's greatest victories were won before the duel began, in the silence he forged within himself. The same silence is available to you if you're willing to reclaim it. And once you learn to wield stillness, chaos loses its grip. Anxiety loses its leverage. Distraction loses its power. A disciplined man is not merely one who acts, but one who is unmoved on the inside. Musashi carried very little with him as he walked the land. 2 swords, the clothes on his back, and a mind uncluttered by excess. His strength did not come from accumulation, but from subtraction. He lived by a principle that modern men overlook. Do nothing which is of no use. In those 9 words lives a quiet brutality, a willingness to remove anything that weakens the spirit, even if it is familiar, even if it is comfortable. Today's man, however, is drowning in the unnecessary. His life is packed with commitments he does not believe in, distractions he does not question, habits that numb him, people who drain him. He carries more weight inside his mind than Musashi carried across entire mountains. And the tragedy is that he calls this overload normal. But the truth is simple. A man who holds too much cannot hold himself steady. Discipline is not built by adding more tasks or forcing more effort. It is built by clearing the path, by stripping away the noise that scatters your focus and weakens your will. The unnecessary is not always obvious. Sometimes it hides in small comforts, in familiar routines, in obligations you tolerate because you fear disappointing others. Sometimes it hides in your digital life, quietly consuming hours of your existence. Sometimes it hides in the people around you, those who pull you toward mediocrity with subtle hands. Cutting away the unnecessary is an act of courage, because subtraction always feels like loss at first. Letting go of distractions feels like stepping into emptiness. Ending a draining friendship feels like betrayal. Abandoning an old habit feels like leaving behind a piece of yourself. But what you are truly shedding is the weight that keeps you from rising. A warrior sharpens his blade not by adding metal, but by removing it. In the same way, you sharpen your life by letting go. You will feel the resistance, the hesitation, the doubt, the strange fear of stepping into a cleaner, quieter existence. But beneath that fear lies the truth. The man you want to become cannot breathe under the clutter of your current life. When you cut away what is unnecessary, you reclaim your time. You reclaim your focus. You reclaim your self-respect. Your days begin to stretch open with clarity instead of collapsing under noise. You begin to see what actually matters. And more importantly, who you become when you protect what matters. The clean life is not empty. It is intentional. It is direct. It is disciplined. You cannot build unbreakable discipline while carrying the weight of a life that isn't truly yours. Sharpen. Simplify. Cut away everything that dulls your edge. There is a kind of strength that does not need to be announced. A gravity that speaks without words. When a man becomes disciplined, truly disciplined, something in his presence changes. Not loudly, not theatrically, but unmistakably. People feel it before they understand it. They sense the steadiness in his posture, the clarity in his gaze, the quiet steel in the way he moves through the world. It is not dominance. It is not ego. It is the silent pride of a man who has mastered himself. Musashi carried this aura wherever he walked. He did not boast about his victories. He did not seek praise or recognition. His confidence was forged in solitude, in struggle, in the unglamorous repetition of effort. And because he expected everything from himself and nothing from the world, he moved with a dignity that few men ever touch. His strength was not in his sword. It was in the unwavering discipline that shaped the hand holding it. In contrast, the drifting man feels hollow. He bends to every impulse, changes direction with every mood, collapses at the slightest resistance. He talks more than he acts. He dreams more than he builds. He fills his silence with noise because quiet exposes his lack of control. This kind of man may appear busy, but he is not moving. He is only circling himself. A disciplined man, however, stands anchored in a world of motion. He does not chase. He does not perform. He simply is. Discipline forms a kind of spiritual armor. It holds you steady when life strikes you unexpectedly. It keeps your mind from unraveling when everything around you is uncertain. It gives you the ability to endure without complaint, to act without hesitation, to carry burdens without breaking your post. This armor is invisible, but its impact is not. It makes you a man others rely on, trust, and instinctively follow, not because you demand it, but because your strength is self-evident. The silent pride of discipline is not arrogance. It is alignment. It is the deep, calming knowledge that you are walking your path with intention, that you are governed by principle, not impulse, that you have become a man who does not crumble under his own weaknesses. Musashi's legacy endures because he refused to collapse. Not once. Not when the world pressed against him. Not when battle seemed unwinnable. Not when solitude weighed heavy. His unbreakable spirit was not a gift. It was the product of a lifetime of choosing discipline over ease, purpose over distraction, integrity over indulgence. When you choose the same path, you begin to carry that silent pride within you, a strength that speaks without sound, a presence that does not need explanation, an inner solidity that no one can give you and no one can take away. Even after Musashi became undefeated, after the duels, the battles, the mastery, he did not settle into comfort or proclamation. He wandered, he refined, he stripped away more than he added. The world called him a master, but he moved as a student, a man sharpening a blade that had already tasted victory 100 times. Because for him, mastery was not an achievement. It was a direction, a way of being, a path without a finish line. The modern man imagines that discipline leads to an arrival, to a moment when everything becomes easy, steady, unchallenged. But Musashi teaches a harsher, quieter truth. Discipline is a river, not a destination. It does not give you rest. It gives you form. It does not remove struggle. It makes you worthy of it. You are not building discipline so you can escape difficulty, but so you can stand unshaken in the center of it. There will be days when your path feels endless, days when progress is invisible, when fatigue wraps around you like a shadow, when you worry that you are walking in circles. And it is in these moments that many men fall back into softness, seeking comfort to ease the ache of uncertainty. But the warrior understands. The path itself is the point. You do not walk to arrive. You walk to become. Musashi's wandering was not aimless. It was a declaration that growth has no final chapter, that a man who stops refining begins to decay, that even victories can turn into prisons if you stay inside them too long. And so he kept moving, kept training, kept cutting away the unnecessary, kept deepening the code that guided his every step. Your life demands the same devotion. Discipline is not something you build once. It is something you recommit to every day, in the small choices, the quiet decisions, the subtle shifts that determine the direction of your life. You will rise, you will fall, you will drift, you will return, and each return will harden your spirit in ways comfort never could. Imagine walking your path as if Musashi himself watched from a distance, not judging, but witnessing, not instructing, but observing the truth of your choices. Would you hesitate? Would you betray your own potential? Or would you lift your head, steady your breath, and continue forward with the calm determination of a man who knows his journey is eternal? Discipline is the quiet river that carves mountains over time. Not with force, but with persistence. Not with noise, but with unwavering direction. Now step onto your path. Sharpen your intention. Walk with the weight of your own legacy forming beneath your feet. There comes a moment at the end of every journey where the noise fades and the truth stands alone. Not the dramatic truth of victories or failures, but the quieter truth that waits beneath your ribs. The one that has been calling to you long before you knew how to listen. It does not shout. It does not demand. It simply rises, slow and steady, like a warrior stepping out of the fog. Discipline was never the destination. It was the mirror. Through each early morning, each small promise kept, each cutaway from comfort, you have been circling back to the man you were meant to be before the world softened you, scattered you, distracted you. And now, in this stillness, you can feel him, the one inside you who does not run, who does not bend, who does not negotiate with his own weakness. The one who watches your choices and waits for you to rise into them. There is no applause for this path, no crowd waiting at the finish line, no thunder of recognition. What you build here is inward, a spine that no fear can bend, a presence that no chaos can fracture, a loyalty to yourself that no comfort can dissolve. This is the kind of strength that grows in silence, in solitude, in the small decisions that no one sees. The kind of strength Musashi carried when he walked alone through forests and battlefields without ever losing the rhythm of his own spirit. You do not need to become legendary. You only need to become aligned with your code, with your path, with the quiet demands of your own potential. Because when a man aligns with himself, the world feels it, not through his words, but through his steadiness, through the way he moves, the weight of his steps, the calm in his gaze, through the silent knowing that he no longer betrays himself. This is where you stand now, at the threshold of who you once were and who you have begun to become. There is no ending here, only continuation, only refinement, only the slow, deliberate carving of a life lived with intention. Walk forward without hurry. Walk forward without noise. Walk forward as if your footsteps were being recorded in the soil of time. Because they are.